This boy is different from the rest of the world. He's in the classroom playing games to make money, while the rest of the world is studying. He's making deals with game buyers. By the age of 16, his bank balance had already reached 6 figures, and he paid for his Mazda in full. He drove to school when everyone else walked. What if there's no parking space? He moved the principal's parking space and parked in it himself, even if he was criticized by the whole school, because that's the kind of superiority he needs. The boy's name was David, and although David was good at making money at games, his parents said he was a failure if he didn't work hard and study hard. But David does not think so. He believes that the study is not to make money and advance to earn is not better, so he spent the entire semester in the game copies of the sale of equipment until the college entrance examination results came out of the score is pathetic. He got his account suspended because of offline trading. David was very sad. He turned his head to the new game console business, gave him a super cheap DVD and idea to make a difference in. Price appeared, so he went to the merchant at a very low price to buy 500 units, but did not realize that these DVDs are imitation goods. He went to the wholesaler to return the goods, but the wholesaler said he was a fool to buy cheap things that are not after sales once sold. No refunds. This was the first time he felt the cruelty of the society, his first business failure. On the way, he met his father, who taught him that business is not as simple as a game, but David still felt that if he hadn't been cheated, he could have sold all his DVDs. His father paid for him to go to a private school, but after experiencing the thrill of success, he didn't want to study. All he could think about was starting his own business, until the day he took his girlfriend to Chinatown to buy chestnuts. He saw a business opportunity in the booming business, where the supply of candied chestnuts exceeded the demand, and as far as he could see, no one else was doing it outside of Chinatown. Then he went to a food processing exhibition and found a fully automated chestnut frying machine that not only freed his hands, but also made the chestnuts smell good. But when he bought it, he realized that the chestnuts crumbled everywhere like popcorn when he fried them. It turns out that there are skills to sift chestnuts, but he does not know how to do it. The 17-year-old made $2 million a month frying chestnuts. How did he do it? He came to the side of the road to see a grandfather in the soaking chestnuts. He asked the grandfather why soaking. The master told him so that he can distinguish between good and bad. Floating is bad, sinking in the water is good. He quickly took notes down when he smelled another family's chestnuts. He asked what kind of stone was used for frying them, and the aunt told him pebbles. He bought chestnuts from someone else's house when no one was looking. He immediately sneaked a taste of their ingredients and returned home to follow suit. He took the best of all worlds and developed his own secret recipe. Soon his chestnuts were so sweet and flavorful that the whole family raved about them. The next key was to rent a stall in the mall, where not only was there a lot of traffic, but also precise food buyers, because he had to attend classes during the day. He left the business to his housekeeper. He thought it would sell like hotcakes, but the reality was brutal. The first day's profit wasn't even enough to pay the electricity bill. Soon he realized that all the other owners were shouting, so he asked the butler to learn how to solicit customers. But the next day he didn't even sell a single box. What should he do? David took action. He had never sold anything before, so he wanted to see what others were doing. When he arrived at the market, he saw the clothes sellers were having a sale, and he quickly took notes. But the most fascinating thing to him was the constant stream of people collecting donations outside the toilets. It was the perfect location for the collection. He quickly jotted down 2 more words: the location. David quickly ran back to the mall and moved it to the entrance of the mall at a high price with the right promotion, and sure enough, the next day business was booming with bags and bags of chestnuts. But just when business was picking up, he received a notice from the mall to leave the mall. It turned out that the fumes from the machines were so strong that the mall ceiling was blackened, and if he couldn't fix the problem, he would have to leave the mall. David had to do the painting himself, but at this time he learned the bad news of his family. His father went bankrupt and the family decided to move to China, but he was in the middle of his career. He did not want to leave. He insisted on staying, but the problem with the fumes never went away, and the mall decided to take away his stall. David's business failed again, and he was so depressed that he hugged his girlfriend and cried. Inadvertently, he ate the seaweed that his girlfriend brought from abroad. So delicious that he could not stop. A new idea was born again. He wanted to fry seaweed. He immediately spent all his savings to buy 10 boxes of seaweed. But no matter how to fry the bitter and astringent taste in the mouth, the idea was to help his family make money to pay off their debts. But after hundreds of experiments, the seaweed was used up and still didn't have the flavor he wanted. David had to sell his favorite computers and game consoles in exchange for the last 5 boxes of seaweed. He lit the stove fire and put the seaweed into the pot to fry for a while, and then shook off the oil and tore off a piece and put it into his mouth and chewed it, but his face became gradually twisted and he spat it out in one mouth. The oil spilled from the seaweed frying burnt his arm with a circle of scars, but even so, the seaweed was used up again and there was still not even 1 piece to eat. Is this business venture going to fail again? Suddenly he saw a piece of seaweed on the ground. He picked it up and fried it in the pan and found that this piece of seaweed was very dry and not oily, which was the way he wanted it to be. He stuffed it into his mouth and it was very crunchy, and this time the taste was finally right. He picked up a packet of seaweed and found that the package was very wet. It turned out that yesterday he went home in the rain. This packet of seaweed accidentally dropped on the ground and was completely drenched by the rain. It seems that the secret to frying seaweed is to soak it in water. With the exclusive recipe business is really booming, customers taste it are unanimously praised. At this rate of money, David calculated that after a year we'll be able to earn $1 million. However, just when David told his family this news, his father's words made David desperate again. It turned out that his father's business failed and the family owed $40 million, and at David's current rate of earning money, it would take 40 years to pay it off. David once again fell into confusion. How to earn $40 million in a short period of time became his next problem. Until this day, David heard a teacher lecture. Teacher said that in order to make money, you have to learn to cooperate with others, also have strategic. Thinking this sentence completely woke up David. He thought if his seaweed sold to the whole country, his own speed of making money will not accelerate. At dawn, he changed into his father's suit to find the manager of the convenience store group of companies to let their stores to help him sell seaweed. But the manager refused because David's seaweed, whether it is the size of the package or the price, does not meet their requirements, and even give the opportunity to try to eat it before the end. Back home, David's girlfriend came to his door. She wanted to ask her family to help David, but David was very strong not to help her and broke up with her. Then he immediately found a design company and asked the boss to redesign the packaging, and then went to the manager with the new packaging. The receptionist said the manager was in a meeting, so David sat down and waited for a whole day, until David found out that the manager did not have a meeting, is deliberately do not want to see him directly to the seaweed. To the elevator, security guards decided not to start a new business. But the opportunity is often in a flash. When an employee came to work, saw the seaweed on the floor, and asked for a few packs to try. But I did not expect to taste so good that I licked my fingers, and soon the office ate David's seaweed. The next day, David was called back to the company after the board of directors agreed that his seaweed could be put on the shelves of 3,000 directly managed stores across the country. But in a month's time, we will have a quality inspection to your factory to conduct a hygiene inspection. But where did he get the money to build a factory with nothing but pots and pans at home? He immediately went to the bank to get a loan, but the manager took a look at his information. At the age of 19, his family owed $40 million in debt. The bank could only reject it. Once again, he hit rock bottom and turned on some loud music and hissed his heart out. This time he went to the used car market and sold his last asset. But the money he got was only enough to rent a dilapidated warehouse, pay half the deposit, and spend the rest on renovations and staff expenses. When the quality inspector arrived, he found that the paint on the doors hadn't dried and the lamps weren't covered and the sinks were full of dirt. David promised to make it right, but he just told him to wait. When he left, the butler gave him an envelope to bribe him, but he didn't want to take shortcuts anymore. Business is done on the ground. So he sold seaweed and gave the factory a new look. After 2 inspections, he finally waited for the quality control report. But then the printer ran out of ink, which made him anxious. So he took it outside and put it in the sun. And through the sunlight, he saw the word pass. After a lot of hard work, his seaweed was finally on the shelves of convenience store chains across the country, and 2 years later, David paid off his $40 million debt. This is a true story of a man formerly known as Adipa, who at the age of 21 became Thailand's youngest billionaire. Although he stumbled along the way, he never wanted to give up because he believed that as long as you don't give up, you can never lose.